Like when you see that just starting out, but because there was also a lot of moments for me when I was just starting out, and like I would see you close Dylan, or I would watch you close Rome, and I'll be like, oh shit, so like that's the next level,
Like I started becoming more disciplined, went into a crazy self-development journey, reading books, getting mentors, all that. So I started to hold myself at a standard.
We asked the server, I'm like, when I say the word like salesperson, what comes to your head? And the guy with like no hesitation, he was like scummy, slime bag, like all sleazy, like.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Charges to the Game. Today we're going to be talking about more sales training. I think we want to talk a little bit more about our approach. We've obviously had a lot of experience over the last 5 years, not only closing our own deals, but also seeing, hundreds of closers and their styles and what works for them and what doesn't work for other people. So, I know we spoke about, we're going to talk about the difference between a salesperson and a closer and what that is. And I'm sure, we'll talk about a lot of other things at the same time. So let's dive in. D, you said something about that just now. Something came to mind. What do you think the difference is between a salesperson and a closer?
I think there's a lot of differences. I think fundamentally it's just some understanding of what your role is, right? I think a lot of salespeople, or a lot of closers are actually salespeople, but they want to be closers, right? They just don't realize the difference, right? So to me, it's like a closer is somebody who changes somebody's beliefs in order for them to actually make a decision, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like everybody can sit there and give information, right? That's not hard to do. Everyone can just sit there, read a script, present a product, have high energy. Oh, this product's so great because that's all super basic stuff. But a closer is somebody who turns a no into a yes. A closer is somebody who changes and shifts people's beliefs in order to put their mindset and limiting beliefs aside to then be able to move forward and make a decision, right? A salesperson just sits there and gives a lot of information, hoping that the person makes a decision. So it's almost like, I don't know, when I think salesperson, to me, it's like, if you're closing deals as a salesperson, you're really just an order taker who's just collecting payments from hot leads.
Yeah.
Right?
Just waiting for opportunities to come at you. Order takers just wait for an opportunity to come to you, and a closer will create the opportunity. That's why order takers and salespeople make a living, and we closers make a fortune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it's like most people, the way that they do sales, it's you got your script, right? You got your PDF document or your little printout that you're reading off, right? You're saying the exact same words. You're asking the exact same questions to totally unique people with totally different goals, right? And then because of that, right? And the thing is like, in some cases, I guess, depending on the business and what they're doing, like you can't really blame them, because it's like, that's the easiest way to like get somebody to, get on the phones, right? Is you just get a body to say the same words to hundreds of people, and then, okay, we'll probably close some of them, right? So I think a salesperson is someone who's staring at a script, right? Who isn't really, making a lot of decisions. They're not really analyzing or reading the person, one. And because of that, they're forced to play the numbers game, right? They say that sales, like, that's where you have an uncapped earning potential. But that only happens when like what you said, being able to shift someone's beliefs, like that's what's known as influence, right? When you can influence another human being to change their behavior or change, what they do or how they operate because of what you say or certain thoughts you put in their mind, right? And that's what allows you to take control of your income, right? Because now, like all the salespeople, you're going to close the laydowns. There's always the leads that come in who are like ready to buy, right? They're showing up, they're ready to make a decision. Everybody's going to close those. Like you have to really mess it up, right? But like, why does one salesperson make 20 grand a month and another makes 6? It's because of your ability to take a non-buyer and turn them into a buyer, right? To figure out like, what are the beliefs that are holding them back? What are their doubts? What are their skepticism? And, through your ability and your skills, you can overcome that, right? And I feel like I was stuck as a salesperson for a while. I think I had a lot of misconceptions around that starting out, like I didn't, even like when we used to do door to door, especially when we did door to door, I was like, hey, I'm just going to knock on doors, say my script, then they buy. If they don't, they don't. There's not much I can really do to affect this, And now when I actually like overcame that belief, that's when I started making a lot more money in sales, But I think that what do you guys think is the real skill set? How can someone go from like being a salesperson, an order taker, someone like that, to leveling up to getting to that next level where they can actually influence people?
I think you said an interesting word there, and I just want to touch on that, and then I'll answer your question. But it's like influence, right? Influence, it's like that's the difference between a salesperson and a closer, right? Salespeople, like you said, they get the laydowns, they get the leads that are just ready to buy. Closers turn a no into a yes, through a process of influence, right? So it's like naturally what that means that the more influence you have, in your, as a salesperson going to, turning into a closer, the more money you're going to make. And I find that it's interesting because the wealthiest people in the world have the most influence, right? But actually, the most influential people in the world have the most money, right? That's what it is. So it's like directly proportional, right? Like Elon Musk is one of the most influential people. Like him or hate him, it's a fact. Donald Trump, same thing. Love him or hate him, one of the wealthiest people in the world. Warren Buffett practically controls half, if not more, of Wall Street, right? So it's like the wealthiest people naturally are the most influential. So it's like what makes somebody influential, right? Obviously on a macro level, it's, money, politics, all these other things. But um, on a micro level in our space in sales, it's how quickly are you able to change somebody's beliefs, right? And then changing people's beliefs is a whole process, right? You have to understand why their beliefs are what they are right now and why. Um, Most people just never care to ask, right? But what was your question?
How can someone and I think the other side of it too, like just to add on to what you were saying, like uh but then you also got to understand who you're dealing with, right? Like who's the human being that you're speaking to, what's their personality like,
That
right?
is
Like
influence, right? That's exactly what that is. Influence is not what you say; it's your ability to read who's on the other side of the table.
the question I was asking was, how can someone go from reading a script or trying to copy what someone else is saying to genuinely being able to hop on calls, talk to prospects, or even people in day to day life, right? Like how can they go from being a salesperson to being a closer? What's that skill jump?
I think this is yeah. I think a lot of this comes to like what you talked about at the mastermind. It's like a journey of personal development, right? It's like you can never expect somebody to make change if you yourself don't make change, right? You can never expect somebody to go through a process of personal development or encourage somebody to get uncomfortable and step out of their comfort zone if you've never done that yourself and have the results to show for it. So it's like I think naturally the easiest thing is like practice what you preach.
So what you're saying is basically is the first deal that you got to close is really yourself. You gotta close yourself on taking action, being better, growing, developing, not listening to the little bitch voice in your head, and then by doing that you can then impose that, I guess, on other people.
1,000%. But it's like that. It's funny because it's like, what's cool about sales? Like everything, all the lessons you learn in sales, in closing, and in the process of going from salesperson to closer, all those lessons that you're going to learn are not just sales lessons, but they're like life lessons. It's like discipline. We tell our leads, hey, you can buy our coaching and you can buy this and you can buy that, whether it's sales, e-commerce, fitness, stock trading, real estate. Obviously we're in remote sales. We sell online coaching. So you can sell anything, but we always tell our leads, like, you got to be disciplined and actually go through it. You can't just buy it and then not show up to role play and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what does that boil down to? That boils down to discipline. I find it interesting. Like the most successful people I hang around with are the most disciplined, are the most, um, you know, uh, keep themselves accountable to higher standard than anyone else. So it's like all these lessons you learn in sales are actually life lessons. It's just interesting how this game works, right? But I think, like, in short, to go from salesperson to closer, um, there's a few things that need to happen. Number one, if you're a salesperson and you make, 30, 40, 50, 60K a year, first realization you need to make is that you suck, right? That, like, first step of change is admitting you have a problem, right? And it's not your fault necessarily, but it's like, you gotta always take 100% accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Oh, my company didn't train me. My this didn't do that. My boss didn't teach me. My
Mhm.
manager never told me about
Mhm.
that. shut the fuck up and take full accountability about your shit, right? So I think that's step one, realizing you suck. And then number two, it's like, okay, well, what do you do about it, right? It's like you got to reflect, right? Like even me, on a high level, we were just talking about this yesterday on one of our clients, right? It's like I said, sales guys, send me two phone numbers for me to listen to recordings of people that you spoke to that were closable, but you didn't close, right? And it's like, you got to be doing that yourself, not your manager doing it for you, but you got to be the manager of your own life, of your own career, right? It's like, I listen to this call, it's a 40 something minute call. I listen to 10 minutes. I have a full PDF of notes, send it to the sales guy. You got to be doing that with your own shit and realize, okay, well, this guy clearly doesn't want to talk to me on the call. He definitely feels resistance. I definitely could have handled this better, right? So it's like, I think the biggest thing is like just taking full total accountability of your shit. And if you need to, start by trial and error. Obviously hiring a coach or, mentors or having people to learn from speeds up that entire process a ton. But if you're not in that position, then just take accountability and commit to not sucking.
Yeah. Yeah, cause even with that, right? Like whether it's a coach or whether it's just like people around you, right? Like when you're brand new, like I remember there was one pretty dope moment a couple years back when we did like a hiring round of like 15 closers in one day, and we split up the group, and then I was in my room, and I closed a $25,000 deal off the spreadsheet list, right, in front of like 8 brand new closers on their first day, and I think when you're like exposed to that, like when you see that just starting out, but because there was also a lot of moments for me when I was just starting out, and like I would see you close Dylan, or I would watch you close Rome, and I'll be like, oh shit, so like that's the next level, like that's what I can do, like when I train, when I get better, and like if you're not exposed to that, if you don't actually see that in front of you, then I don't think if I didn't see the next level when I was first starting out, I probably wouldn't have taken the actions that it needed to take to get to that next level. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. For the longest time, for like maybe a year, maybe a little bit more than a year, I told you guys this in the last podcast we had. By the way, was it number 3 or number 4? Number 3. And I told you because I had 5 scripts, right? Because I was an order taker. I was still a sales guy. I had 5 scripts for 5 different types of prospects. I'm like, okay, if this guy went through this, if this guy said this, I'm going to use this script. And that's why my commissions never really changed like the first year. And I didn't know how to handle anybody else. I just had these scripts and I was relying on these scripts. And what made me transition personally from a sales guy to a closer is not only, yes, like getting better at sales and listening and reflecting my calls, but setting a new standard for myself. Like I started becoming more disciplined. Like I went into a crazy self-development journey, reading books, getting mentors, all that. So I started to hold myself at a standard. And then that's when I stopped accepting these prospects' excuses, their limiting beliefs on the calls. And that, instead of me accepting them, like, oh, okay, like, oh, that's why you haven't done this. Okay, yeah, that makes sense why you haven't made a change, and continue. Instead of be like, yo, like, what do you mean you haven't made a change because you didn't have the right information? Like, dude, what did you actually try? Because I know when I was in your position, the reason why I didn't change is because I never tried. And so for me to figure that out, I'd be like, okay, you're just holding yourself back. And most people would tiptoe around that. They don't want to like cause like tension on the call. But that's exactly what you need to do. And you told me this, like if there's not enough tension, if the call was an easy call, if you had a real relaxed, chill call, then you're probably not going to close them. There needs to be some sort of tension. There needs to be some part of the call where it's not chill. It's high tension, right? Because it's new perspective changes. You're holding them to a standard. And you got to be okay with that. Which means what? You got to be okay with losing the sale.
And I think that comes down to your intention on the call, right? Because yeah, that's so true, right? Like your prospect, they wouldn't be on the call with you. They wouldn't have taken time out of their day to click on an ad, book a call, fill out a questionnaire, set time aside, show up, answer your questions, right? They wouldn't go through all of that if they didn't have a serious problem that they needed to solve, right? And if they haven't been able to solve it already, then that means that their actions or their beliefs that they've had up until this point are not getting them to where they're trying to go, right? So like for you to be able to one, close a deal, and two, to help somebody make a transformation, you have to show them that, right? And you have to make it very clear, like, and that's uncomfortable, right? And I think that that's where the tension comes in, you know, because like change is uncomfortable. And there was I had a good example of this last night actually. We had a brand new we had a student come into to the program, and I was having a conversation with him in the evening yesterday, and just like overall, right, like super down to earth guy, you know, some experience in sales, you know, he was doing decent for his age, you know, like overall, like ideal client, right, perfect for what we do, like the kind of person that we just get results for every day, you know, and you know, good mindset, all of that, everything is good, but like again, he's on this call because he has a problem that he hasn't been able to figure it out on his own, right? We get to the end of the call, and I want to think about it, right? I'm like, okay, 100%. I'm like, that's totally fine. I'm like, talk to me, man. What's going through your head right now, right? Yeah, everything sounds good. This is exactly what I need to do. I know I need to make the change. I know this is for me, but I don't know, impulsive decision, blah, 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 right? That stuff, you know? And like in the moment, like genuinely, right? And just the approach that I take in any sales call, you know, especially over the last couple of years, is like I'm just detached from the sale, right? Like I really focus on just being totally present with this person. Okay, I met this person 45 minutes ago, but like let me really lock in, understand his situation, understand his goal, and do what I can to help this person, right? And you know, I'm sitting there and he's talking about, you know, certain limiting beliefs, wants to think about it, whatever. And you know, that's exactly what I told him. I was like, hey, bro, like at the end of the day, I'm not thinking about the sale. I'm like, bro, at the end of the day, like, let me ask you, your reality right now, would you agree that it is a result of your beliefs and the actions that you've taken? And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. So now to get to where you want to be and to get to the goals that you told me earlier, do you think that you're going to have to take new actions and create new beliefs to do that? And then he's like, yes. I was like, okay, this right here is one of them. You looking at an opportunity in front of you and being indecisive, like this is the reason why you're in the position that you're in. I can give you a week, I can give you a month, like that's fine. I don't care. Call me back, whatever. But one way or another, you're gonna have to face that decision. And if you can't do it now, then what's gonna change later? You know?
That's pretty solid.
And it's funny actually because we ended the call because I had to go, and he hit me up a couple hours later. He was like, "Hey, that stuck with me. I'm ready to rock," you know. And like that's what it's all about, man. Like I love that, you know. The fact that you know I don't have to, you know, sell on you're guaranteed to see a result or this is exactly what's you know what I mean. I don't have to sell with like that bullshit, right? Because one, that doesn't really sell people, and two, that doesn't set people up for success, right? But like in that moment, like that's where we can actually help someone step into a new identity, reshape new beliefs, and go in and start the journey to go and make the transformation, you know? And like that's the best. Like that's what makes sales so freaking fun, you know, is the fact that we can do that.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like what's the difference between salespeople and closers, right? Like you've never heard somebody say, I hate closers, you know?
That's very true.
Right? But nobody likes salespeople. Remember that one time we went to a restaurant one time and we were just having this discussion. I'm like, man, like fuck, everybody hates salespeople, right? But we're not salespeople. So we kind of anyway, we asked the server, I'm like, you know, when I say the word like salesperson, what comes to your head? And the guy with like no hesitation, he was like scummy, slime bag, like all sleazy, like fuck.
And then he's like, are you guys in sales?
It's like, you know, on that topic of like, you know, our sales approach and how we sell and you know, what separates salespeople from closers. It's like, well, nobody likes salespeople, right? Salespeople are just there to take money from people who are ready to rock, right? Whereas closers actually, if you're a good one, take the time to set your prospects up for success, like you were saying, Misha, right? So it's like, well, no shit, people don't like salespeople, right? Salespeople are just there to make their commission, and they don't give a fuck about you nor your results.
It's very self-centered.
100%. So it's like,
thinking about themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like big picture. It's like, well, what's the difference between salespeople and closers? It's very simple. Salespeople put themselves first. Closers put their prospects first every single day of the week. And that ultimately reflects in their income. That reflects in their like happiness, right? As a whole, and satisfaction in their career, right? If you're selling some bullshit product and you're not setting your people up for success, there's no way you're going to be happy. Doesn't matter how much money you're making, you're going to go home every single night and sleep with the thought in your head, like, fuck, I'm not helping people, I'm not setting people up for success, right? So it's like that's what separates salespeople and closers. Salespeople only give a shit about themselves and their commissions. Closers put their impact above their income, and then their income reflects that, right?
Boom, boom. That's a bomb. That's a bomb for sure. How do you think? Because, and I think on the flip side too, how do you think that affects like day to day life, right? Like outside of sales, right? Like learning that skill set. Like how does that just affect who you are and just your life as a whole?
I mean, like, yeah, Rama. Well, I just want to comment on this real quick. It's like it's actually impacted my life in so many ways that I've never really thought about. Like how many times have we gone to? There's a restaurant in Toronto called Harbor 60, which is always or was at one point. They're closed right now for renovation, unfortunately. But when they were open, like it's popping. It's one of the most popular restaurants in Toronto. How many times have we tried getting a reservation on Resi or Open Table, whatever, and it's not available, and then we call them fucking 2 minutes in and we get the reservation. And it's like small things like that that just add up, and it's like it's all just a contribution to the overall quality of your life. But I never like getting into this. I never went, well, hopefully I'll learn how to close so that I can close the receptionist on getting me that reservation. It's like it's insignificant, but it's all like it adds up. And then the other thing, it's like it's karma too, right? Like back to what I just said about like being good people and actually giving a fuck about other people when we're closing. Fuck, maybe that's why we get those reservations. Maybe that's why we get those good seats. Maybe that's why all those things happen, because we actually just care about people and about helping and not only our commission, right?
100%. It made me a better friend, bro, to my friends. It made me a real friend. Because real friends, bro, in my opinion, but real friends, what will call you out on your shit. Real friends keep you accountable, right? Real friends keep you in check, bro. And a fake friend is a friend who's like, like, oh, they're just there for the short time, the good time, like, oh, how you doing? Good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, don't worry about it, bro. It's just a little hiccup. You'll get over it, whatever, But a real friend will call you out on your shit. So I started like actually like calling my friends out on their shit. I'm like, bro, like, do you really? And I would not have been able to do this if I didn't get into sales and ask these questions, these hard questions. Like, bro, like, are you actually happy in your life right now? No. Why not? Well, because this. Okay, well, do you feel like if you continue doing what you're doing right now, is anything gonna change? No. So it taught me to communicate better with my friends and family by not telling them, do this, but just asking the right questions that makes them come to the conclusion that they need to do this.
Yeah, yeah, and like that's uncomfortable, right? Like that's uncomfortable. The easier thing would be to not make that comment, right, and to not ask those questions. But yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that's the other thing too, right? I guess back to sales, right? Is like being able to, where there's like facts tell, stories sell, right? Rather than justifying or speaking or saying something to your prospect, right? You'll ask them a question, or you'll put a thought into their head and guide them to come to a certain conclusion, rather than just saying, "Hey, here's how it is." It's you're asking them a question, letting them come to their own conclusion, right? That's what that's the highest form of control, right? Is being able to guide the conversation where you want it to go. But at the end of the day, your prospect or whoever you're dealing with, they feel like they're the one in control. All right, and that's how you can create real change. Because at the end of the day, like people, the biggest thing that stops people from overcoming certain beliefs or whatever is like their ego or their natural like defense mechanisms, right? Where if like you say something, you say like, hey bro, like you have to go to the gym more, then naturally it's like your defensive, you're gonna be like, oh well, instantly you just go into that mode where you have to go defensive, right? But if you ask questions, then you can kind of get to where you want to go. So that's a good point.
Exactly.
It's just leadership. Sales is leadership on a micro level, right? It's like even the gym example. It's like, I know I gotta go to the gym, but if you tell me you gotta go to the gym, I'll tell you to fuck off. Not even because I don't know I need to go to the gym. I do, but it's like, well, you gotta lead by example, right? Monkey see, monkey do. That's how life works, and it's not gonna change, right? So it's like that's all sales is. That's what closing is, right? The most successful closers are the ones who've gone through this journey of growth and development themselves. All you're doing is just leading by example on your sales calls and transferring your lessons that you've learned by going through the process to your prospects. Probably not, but we can clip it after. Really, that's all it is, though, right? It's like you can't teach somebody personal development, right? It just, you're helping your prospects come to those realizations by living through what you've gone through, given that you've gone through that journey. But you have to go through that journey.
And like from that frame too, right? Like when you frame sales that way, right? Where like sales is you're helping people, right? My income is in proportion to the impact that I have and the people that I help, right? If you accept that frame, then what that means, the only way for you to be able to help someone is when you have some kind of information, knowledge, results. You have something that someone else doesn't have that they want, right? Not necessarily the material things. I think the material things
lessons
are yeah. I think the material things are actually irrelevant. I think the material things do very little, but exactly the lessons, the things that have been learned from years of whatever that I can just walk you through right now, so you can skip it all for yourself, right? But like the only way that you can help somebody is if you've walked the path yourself, right? And if you're not a person of value, then you're gonna have a tough time helping anybody.
Yep.
Right?
The other interesting thing is like the people who give you the most resistance on sales calls and the prospects who have the hardest time actually getting started will often see the best results. If you've done your job as a closer, right? If you just got them to pay, like, to me, you're not a closer, right? Like, okay, good job, you did it. But setting them up for success, teaching them the lessons, giving them the reality of what it takes. Those people will often become the most successful because they the biggest blocker that they've had in achieving results in whatever it is their mindset. So it's like, whether we're selling e-commerce or real estate or whatever it is, I know that this person's going to be successful before they even start going through the program based on how our conversation went. And ultimately, it comes down to me and my ability to shift their beliefs, shift their thoughts, give them the reality, show them, perspective and all these things, right? So it's like, obviously what you sell matters 100%, but that's only a small piece of the pie. Because like you could sell, a half-ass program or a half-decent program, but the prospect that you sell to will have way better results if you get them to do the work than somebody who's going through the best program in the world, but they don't actually understand what it's going to take, and you don't prepare them for that, right? So it's like, it's directly proportional to how the conversation, your prospect success, obviously there's variables and factors, but on a macro level, is directly proportional to how the conversation goes with you as the closer on the phone. Isn't that crazy to think about that and the impact that we have every single day? Like we sell, info products on making money. Well, we have the power to change somebody's entire financial future for them and their family and their family's family. But we also have the power to leave them in the same place if we're just salespeople. So a lot of responsibility.
For real. And like, yeah, like it all just starts from, like coming from a place of, I think if we like, kind of recap what we've spoken about so far, right? Because I think there's multiple elements to this, right? But first off, like you said, I think one is it's self accountability, right? It's on a personal level, understanding that it's never been easier to learn more, take in more information, and become better, but it's also never been easier to be lazy. And if you can look in the mirror and realize, hey, I need to get better, and where I'm at right now is unacceptable, that's kind of the first step, right? In terms of, the habits and all of that, and also in terms of your skill level as a person working in sales, right? I think that's one. Then it's really the personal development journey, right? And holding yourself to an insanely high standard, to be honest. Something that's 5-10 times higher than what the average person would hold themselves to, if not more. From there, I think, and let me know if I'm missing anything, guys. But from there, once you've done that, now you can come from a place on your calls of you can come from a place of value and giving and guiding someone to help level up, right? And thinking about their success rather than their commissions. And then when you do that, now you can actually go and set them up for success. You can help them shift certain beliefs that you once had before. You can ask them high quality questions to let them come to the realization on their own. And ultimately, that approach is going to make you way more money than the approach of trying to sell somebody, right? Anything I missed there?
Just turning every negative to a positive, bro. Like I smile every time I hear no, smile. Just smile.
Yeah, same.
And that's how you know if somebody's a closer or a sales guy. Just wait till the
Yeah.
end till they pitch and they drop the price and just look at them. You see if they get tensed up a little bit or
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's a closer. Nah, he's a sales guy. He's tripping right now.
And it's funny too because even like we do we do sales training, right? So it's like it's funny sometimes taking the sales calls where it's like someone will hit you with like, I want to think about it, and then I just like smile whenever I do that, and like they know and they start smiling too, and they're like, fuck. Because it's like, yeah, this is gonna be one of the things that I train you on, man.
Even when me and Dylan used to go out on frequent dates, a lot less often, but whenever we go to a restaurant and they're like, we don't have any tables, I'm like, we look at each other, we smile, like, me or you? Who's, who's gonna handle this objection?
I remember that.
Going nice.
Good
By the
times
way,
with
I, I love that ring. Where's it from? Oh no, your grandmother gave it to you. That's, I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah. Hey, listen, I know you guys is busy and whatever, but can you make an exception for two handsome men? And I was like, let's see, let me see what I got.
Give me the shittiest table there, like in the corner at the bar where nobody's sitting. Just give me the shittiest table. Well, I'm not gonna give you a shitty table. That's fine. Whatever you got, I'll take it. uh, but I like what you said, Misha, about holding yourself to a higher standard. Like when you said we hold ourselves to a standard like 5 to 10x higher than most people. To me, in my head, I'm like, fuck. Well, that's not even true because most people have no fucking standard. So it's like, what are we multiplying by? Fucking zero, It's like if you go to a random person who's not in our world and you just ask them, like, what are your standards? What is your non-negotiable code of conduct for yourself? They have no fucking idea. They have no clue, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like for us, and I try and teach this to our people, to our students, like, you got to know your shit, right? You got to know what your values are. You got to know what you believe in. You got to know what you're against. And you got to act in line with that every single fucking day. If you have a code of conduct for yourself, you never step out of line. Never,
Mhm.
And I think it's important. I mean, that's what makes, you.
So what do you think? What do you think? What do you think are some of the standards that maybe standards that you have?
I think there's like
or
personal standards and then there's like standards on sales calls. I think, I shared this one time on a coaching call. I'm like, look, you got to realize 3 things. Number one, your prospects, when they get on calls, well, number one is we always put our prospects first, right? If it means not closing the deal because we know that it's not going to work out for our prospects for any reason, like they don't have the time, right? That's often a limiting belief and all that sort of shit. But let's say that's an actual thing. If my prospect's telling me, hey, I'm not going to do this, I will never sell them whatever I have to sell them.
Yeah.
Right? So number one, it's like we always put our prospects first. Number two, you got to realize that your prospects are going to have to go through a very, very, very oftentimes difficult, challenging, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually transformation to see results. It's going to be hard. Change is hard. And then number three is like, well, your prospects are also going to try their very best to stay in their comfort zone. That's why it's called a comfort zone. It's comfortable. So it's like knowing that and knowing those things forms my standards. My standards are, and my non-negotiables is always putting my prospects first, always helping my prospects realize the truth of what it takes to see results. I'll never make things seem easier than they are. Whether I'm selling my own training on sales, I'll never make sales seem easier than it is. Whether it's e-commerce, I'll never make it seem like you can make $1 million in drop shipping in 3 hours, or real estate, or any of these other things. And then number 3, I will never let my prospect get off the call without realizing that they're going to have to take a massive step and massive action out of their current comfort zone in order for them to see results. So those are the standards I have on every single sales call, whether it's a $500 down payment, or it's a $5,000 sale, or it's a $100,000 done for you thing. It doesn't matter. I make those things clear. Those are the standards. And then I have my personal standards that I hold myself to, ethics, morals, so on and so forth, right? Right? There's a lot. I mean, ethics is probably, and ethics kind of breaks down into many things, but it's like, there's not a single person that I've ever worked with that could say I've done them dirty or wrong. Never, ever, 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 ever. Just not one person. Maybe certain people might think that at one point. They realize eventually, right? Because people think what they want to think oftentimes. But I've never fucked anybody over. Not for fucking $5. I've never done anybody dirty. If I've made mistakes, I always go out of my way to fix it. And you know, it's like there's a list. There's a lot to it, but it's like that's what forms you, right? And that's what people know you for.
That's kind of the base of all of it, right? That's where you build, you know, the person that you need to be, whether that's in sales and just in everything else.
Yeah, that's why we always say money ain't shit. Or I always say money ain't shit without the person that you're trying to build in the process. It's only going to amplify who you are.
It's crazy how like all these conversations, it always just comes back to personal development. We're like, even like the first day of the mastermind, we're like, all right, guys, we're gonna go super tactical sales. We're gonna pour into these people, and like we start with tactical sales, but then it just ends up at like, yo, like you gotta fucking set standards for yourself.
But you can't do the tactical shit if you don't have the personal shit, right? Yeah. It's like, because then it's fake. People read right through that bullshit, right? Yeah. It's like if somebody tries to teach you, like we can read right through all the bullshit, right? It's like. Isn't it? But it's like none of the coaches that we've sold for in the past are scammers. Why? Because we can read right through that bullshit, right? So it's like, and it's the same as a closer. It's like, well, like you can tell people, oh, you got to be doing this and doing that, but it's like, if you're telling me you got to do one thing, but you're not doing yourself, I read right through your bullshit, and everybody does, right? Every prospect will, right? It's not difficult, right? We naturally have that ability as humans, right? So it's like you got to practice what you preach. You can't preach one thing but move differently, right? The tactical shit is great once you've kind of built yourself personally and mentally to that level where the tactical shit can be useful. Until you've done that, and until you're at that kind of baseline, tactical shit's all useless.
And I feel like the tactical gets pretty easy when you kind of gain the hard part is really the base, you know. And like that's something that it's not like you, okay, cool, I'm disciplined now. I've got my base, I've got my standards. Let me move on. Like that's something that you always have to be developing, right?
Developing and improving it every day. Showing up every day.
Every day is a test.
Every day. It doesn't get easier.
All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up right there. Let's get it. Yeah, it's crazy how all of these podcasts that we do, all of us are like just checking our phones because it's always like
leads are like texting us. Everyone thinks we're just like probably, I don't know, swiping through some nonsense, but really we're seeing what's up. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, oh, got a call in 2 minutes. So, I mean, that's who you want to learn from, right? People who actually practice what they preach. So many of these fucking YouTubers and motivational speakers talk all this shit, but they got no results to show for it, right? So it's like, who do you want to learn from? Somebody who can speak nicely, or somebody who speaks from real experience, I just gotta, I don't know, it's not a sale, but it's a lead who's gonna turn into sale. Anyway, what was I saying? Learn from people who know their shit. That's the bottom line. Smart people learn from their own mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Learn from us. Learn from people who know their shit.
Or just watch from the sidelines. Do your thing.
Shit.
But all right, let's get it, guys. Guys, check out the YouTube stuff. This camera right here. Check out the YouTube. All three of us got channels. Dylan's coming out with the YouTube channel. By the time this podcast drops, that's definitely going to be live. So I'll link down below. The podcasts are cool because we get to chat, talk, subscribe. But for the sales training, for the tactical, go check out the other YouTubes, and we'll see you there.
Boom.
Peace.
Charge it to the game.